Yeah, I've been watching a little bit more TV than usual lately, and one of the things I came across while flipping channels was Guy Fieri. Guy Fieri, I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly. And I've seen all the jokes about him for years. I've seen all it's an internet thing, like people just constantly make fun of this guy. But I don't think I'd ever actually seen him. And he's one of those guys where you can vividly imagine his voice, even if you haven't heard it. You know what his personality is going to be, and he's an easy person to target for obvious reasons. I mean, he's the ultimate fat guy with bleached. I don't even I don't even need to explain it. We all know the type of guy I'm talking about. And what's weird about that too is I remember as someone who grew up, I was a fat kid. I was fat until I was like 20, and I remember opportunities to become that guy. I remember like little opportunities in life where like I could have, if I had made like a different choice, I could have gone down the path of being like the Guy Fieri, like the fat guy who yells like woohoo at the party and like, wins the chicken wing contest and, and whatever else. I mean, we know the type of guy I'm talking about, like, and we know the evolution of that type of guy from, teenager to adulthood, and he just gets stuck, in the flame shirt or whatever else. I mean, there's a bunch of different variations of the Guy Fieri, and he gets made fun of, I think, because he's the ultimate version. He's like the worst, like, just on a visual level, personality, like, level, he's like the worst slash best example of that type of guy. And the bass player is also another variation of that type of guy. Uh, Especially in '90s bands, like the bass player was always like the chubby guy with spiked hair, quiet and just kind of like I don't know. That's a different variation of the same thing I'm talking about. But Smash Mouth, I mean, like that's another obvious target, and has all this stuff is very related. It's like the singer of Smash Mouth. He made some choices that Guy Fieri also made that put them further down that path. Whereas I saw those opportunities and was like, I just can't do that. Uh, so I guess I have some empathy for those types of guys, and they get made fun of a lot. And I wonder too about with Guy Fieri, where like I watched him for about a split second. I didn't watch him like eat anything. I barely got a glimpse. It was like him like whispering. No, it was just him whispering into the camera. It was him just talking in a normal voice, which I guess like for him is a whisper. For a normal person, it's a normal voice. But I don't know what I'm doing. This is my Guy Fieri's talking hand motion, and now I feel like I'm like falling into the trap of like making fun of him, which I don't want to do at all, and I'm not. I'm analyzing him, but so I didn't really get that big of a glimpse of him, but I was like, he's not that bad. Like, and I wonder too, like, is he a guy? Has any bad shit ever come out about that guy? Like, he gets a lot of ridicule, and I don't know if people hate him. I don't think they do, but I don't know if there's really a difference. Like, when people are making fun of somebody that much, are they? I mean, it's still like a heavy dose of negativity thrown that guy's way like every day. Like, think about when you send a text message or something, and like your friend takes a long time to respond, and like that guy lives in this world where like he knows at all time, and then like when nobody responds, like you start to get paranoid and you're like, maybe I did something, maybe people have a problem with me, I'm not perfect, oh fuck. And with Guy Fieri, like he knows that people are like talking shit and making fun of him round the clock. He just knows that. And maybe it's fuel. I mean he's you know his face is practically on Mount Rushmore. I mean, you know, at least as far as like the psychic Mount Rushmore. I don't want to get too out there right now, but maybe he's just so rich and so like his life is so great that it doesn't matter. But still, like he gets a lot of negative energy thrown his way. And I really do wonder, like, is he a piece of shit? No, it doesn't seem like it. I don't. Maybe there's more I haven't heard about, but like, maybe he like he. It seems like he's like the kind of guy where like you would hear some story that like some restaurant chain named after him did something unethical, and maybe that did happen. Like that sounds, but I feel like that happens with every one of these celebrities and celebrity chefs. Anybody who's famous and has a restaurant in their name, I feel like something always comes out how they did something scandalous or unethical, but it doesn't really reflect on like the celebrity namesake. So I don't know. I don't know what his story is, but it is just funny that we will excuse so much from like all these other pieces of shit. And then it's like this guy, this literal guy, this little guy named Guy is just he just absorbs so much shit from people, and probably doesn't deserve it. It kind of makes me think too, because he's very much like kind of the same. Well, here's another example, of that type of guy. There's like the bass player who's like the more stoic version of that guy, but still looks like those guys. Then there's like the Smash Mouth singer, and then there's like the Guy Fieri, but then there's also like the Insane Clown Posse guy, where he's just basically like Guy Fieri in face paint, and they're a target of like an insane amount of criticism and hate and just everything else under the sun. And once again, though, I feel like people have reached a point like where I don't know if they hate Guy Fieri. Like, I don't know if people really hate the Insane Clown Posse at this point. I think they did. And the thing that blows my mind about the Insane Clown Posse, though, is they have such a strong following, but they handle it like so responsibly. Like, because those guys could point a finger, and if they told their followers, burn down every daycare you see, people would have to take that seriously. Like, cops would have to be like circling the blocks, like looking for gangs of juggalos. They would have to be, I wasn't going to use the word, I was just going to call them followers. Anyway, we all know who I'm talking about. But I don't know why. I sometimes like to like talk about things in a more generalized way without naming them specifically. And this is an example of one. I don't know why. But so the followers of the Insane Clown Posse, they, cops would have to be on the lookout for them. They'd have to have cops stationed at daycares, because even though a very small percentage of ICP followers would like go out and attack a daycare, burn down a daycare, it would still be a serious enough threat that, cops and people in general would probably have their eyes fucking peeled. I mean, imagine if the ICP declared war against, everybody else who wasn't part of it. We would have to take that very seriously, even though a small percentage of them would actually be a threat. But then a larger number of them would probably condone it or somehow, facilitate it, or protect the ones who are doing the bad shit. So, I mean, that's a powerful group. And like I said, my point is that the actual ICP, the two guys, they handle it all with grace, and they seem to bask in the glory of it all, and I'm sure they get a lot of perks from having this cult-like following. And really, like, I think it kind of is a cult. Like, there was all that stuff in the news where it was like, are they a gang? The media, journalists, cops were labeling them a gang. And are they a gang, or are they a cult of people who would join a gang under other circumstances? And is there a difference between those things at that point? That's what I would ask. It's like I don't know, it's an interesting philosophical question. A cult of people who would potentially join a gang and may exhibit gang-like behavior. But yeah, they're very cult-like, and I mean, they've been talked about so much. That's why I didn't even want to name them by name or really go into that, because I'm talking about like the like boisterous fat guy archetype, which is a real archetype. And like I said, I could feel a gravitational pull growing up, like, because it's a role. I mean, it's an archetype, it's a role. And if you grow up fat, you don't really identify with like the hero role. You don't think of yourself as like, and it's not a low self-esteem thing. It's more like, in my case, like, I didn't really have low self-esteem. Like, I didn't like being fat, but I also didn't like hate myself for it, fortunately. I don't know. I was just kind of like, whatever. Like, and fortunately I wasn't bullied too much. Like, now and again you'd get a comment like, but if it's a description, like if someone just describes you as fat, I mean, they're not, get over your sensitivity, you're fat, and people are going to describe you that way. But I was never really like attacked that much. I don't know, fortunately. Because I imagine that would be brutal if you're just attacked for your weight every day, and I know it happens all the time. But anyway, enough about me. Yeah, that archetype and that role, and like the way that like someone can get roped into being a Guy Fieri because they know they're not the leading man, they know they're not this or that, and so it's like, it's almost like being like, yeah, I'll be the sidekick, I'll be the guy. I'll be the guy who doesn't get laid at the party and like pukes. It's like, it's kind of like embracing that. And I don't know, you know, I mean, it's like there's something to it. There's a reason why that character too is in everything. I mean, even like Robin Hood, like the Friar. I'm talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the movie. I don't remember how Friar Tuck is portrayed in any of the original stories or anything like that. But in the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which you must watch, it's like that was my favorite movie as a kid. I saw it over and over and over again. I can quote almost the whole thing. Um, but Friar Tuck in that is this drunk, and he's kind of like the boisterous. He's like the Guy Fieri of Robin Hood in that movie. He drinks all this wine, and he's very like, you know, he's always shouting, that kind of thing. So that character, you know, and that character shows up in ancient stories, you know. That's why I say it's an archetype, and it's usually like the drunkard. There's kind of a buffoon, but like a lovable buffoon. Uh, you know, Guy Fieri is an ancient archetype, clearly. And there's nothing wrong with becoming that. Like, if that feels right, Artie Lang, you know, it's like that the guy from Howard Stern. He's very much that. Chris Farley. I mean, it's just these guys all embrace it, and those guys like thrived. You know, I mean, obviously they're really self-destructive, but you know, they excelled, I should say, at doing that, and were great at it. And maybe Guy Fieri's great at it. You know, despite all the talk about him. I mean, he's successful, you know. I'm like someone's dad at the dinner table, and like the kids are like talking shit on like Guy Fieri, and I'm the dad who's like, yeah, well, where's your TV show? Where's your TV show? The man's successful, he makes a living, and he gets to eat, you know. You know, I'm like the dad saying that. But I don't know. I just something about seeing him the other day like made me actually think about him. And I felt kind of bad for him in a way. I was like, you know, just the level of constant ridicule, and it doesn't seem to end. But he's the type of guy too, where like he'd be the guy that you ridicule horribly, like behind his back or like before you've met him, and then you meet him and you're just like, oh God, like that guy was so cool. That guy was so nice. You know, he did something. He bought you an iced tea. he bought you a large iced tea over dinner. I don't know, but yeah, he's the type of guy where yeah, you would be like, oh man, like, hey, guess who I am? You know, I'm Guy Fieri. I don't know. It's supposed to be hair. And then like he actually comes in and he's just like, hey guys, like, can I do anything for you? Oh man, like nice shoes. You know, I'm gonna eat the whole burger. Can I buy you guys anything? Like, oh, here's a tip, $100. You know, he's that type of guy, I bet. Or maybe not. Maybe like all of this has been in vain, and like he's actually a huge piece of shit, like these other. I don't. Is he a celebrity chef? I don't even know. Like, is he known for cooking? I don't really know what he is, and I just know he eats, and that he looks. You know, he looks how he looks, and he wears like the silver sunglasses. I don't know. We all know that it's all very obvious. There's no question to me. Never in this whole topic is there a question of, you know, why do people make fun of him? Because it's very obvious why they make fun of him. But this whole question is like, does he actually deserve it? And I'd say no. You know, I don't see any sign, and maybe somebody can, you know, point me the right way. I don't know. All 0 listeners, watchers. I guess they would be watchers in this case. I got to remember I'm on camera, you know, as I fidget. But yeah, I'd love to hear that, because, but once again, yeah, the roles, like you get sucked into the role of becoming that guy or this guy. And I think the first video or maybe the second video I ever did on this YouTube channel, the second video I ever did was about roles, you know, and the way we get pulled into them. And I don't know, it's because it's easier than, I guess, being left on your own. Because if you're a fat kid growing up and, like, you see an opportunity to be that guy, it's more than the alternative, which is feeling like nothing or something. I don't know, that sounded way heavier than I meant it to. I don't mean nothing as in, like, I'm just nothing, I'm a nobody. I mean, like, where you just don't feel like you have any kind of, like, real trait that makes you stand out. And I think everybody struggles with that. It's not just the fat kid, because everybody gets pulled into different roles. Like, where it's like, I'm going to become this guy. I'm going to become the dorky scientist who doesn't understand sarcasm or facetious humor. I take everything very literally, because that's another one of these weird archetypes. But I could spiral off here and then get angry. I don't know. Just some thoughts. Food for thought, and, you know, it's food for thought, and Guy Fieri is going to take a big bite out of it. That's all. Oof.